Hello, everyone. I'm back again, your not so favorite former companion and listed victim of count 3 of the United States versus Sean Combs. Here to talk about my new civil action, which is Howard versus Netflix, House of Nonfiction, West Tower Inc., Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, and Alexander Stapleton, the producers and controllers of The Reckoning, the Netflix documentary that has probably been viewed by 60 to 75 million people worldwide.
Netflix might be in hot water. Clayton Howard alleges that Netflix blockbuster documentary The Reckoning completely misrepresented his story. According to the lawsuit Howard versus Netflix, the streaming giant edited his hours-long interviews to make Sean Combs look like the main villain while downplaying the true role of Cassie Ventura, his primary abuser. In a shocking revelation, Howard explains that consent was manipulated, lies were used, and powerful celebrities controlled the narrative of his life. Just because someone pays you doesn't mean you consent, he warns, pointing to decades of coercion, manipulation, and abuse. And Netflix, according to him, they profited from his trauma while giving him a fraction of the compensation other participants received.
As many of you know, I was a participant in episode 3, Original Girl, which talked about Cassie. Now, the footage from that episode comes from my second interview with Netflix, where I, being a man of integrity, realized that my first interview may have been highly biased and favored towards positioning Mr. Combs as my primary offender. Now, people, I don't speak for Diddy. Excuse me. I don't speak for Diddy. I speak against Diddy, and I speak against Cassie. Just because I say Diddy was maliciously prosecuted, people, it doesn't mean I support him. It just means I'm a black man who has faced injustice and misconduct in the legal system. And as a black man who has faced this, I can totally confirm from my not only experience, but from my educational level, that Sean Combs was maliciously prosecuted. He was guilty, but he was maliciously prosecuted because evidence that implicated his other co-conspirators were withheld for the purpose of prosecuting Mr. Combs for the entire, weight of the criminal case. And that was wrong, people. They could have easily acknowledged that Cassie and Jane were co-conspirators and gave them immunity, people, and they could have still prosecuted Diddy, but they didn't. They didn't want to acknowledge that the minority men like myself were victims until they had to. And when did they have to? Well, people, they had to when they lost the criminal RICO and they realized they couldn't put Diddy in jail without naming the male victims. So the U.S. Attorney's Office created a document on the Sean Combs criminal docket, which was docket number 516, the sentencing memorandum. And in that sentencing memorandum, they explicitly broke down how the men like myself were victims and categorized each of us into a separate category capable of extending the prison sentence request of Diddy. That was a mistake on the government's part because in that document, they substantiated my civil RICO, which totally proves that I was a victim of this decade-long sex trafficking conspiracy created by Cassandra Ventura, Sean Combs, and ultimately Jane Doe. Cassie and Jane did not work together. They worked independently of each other because each one of them wanted to be Sean Combs' official girl. Jane Doe loved Cassie, 50 Cent's baby mama. Cassie loved Diddy. This is why she tolerated Diddy and did all of these things for years. But love does not give you the right to manipulate people into criminal activity through lies, through coercion, and through manipulation. Just because someone pays someone to be involved in a crime doesn't mean that person truly consented. Because any type of coercion, manipulation, or deceit totally vitiates, and for those of you who don't understand such a big word, that means destroys the consent. You cannot consent to an action that someone lies to you about. You cannot consent to an action that someone coerces you, believing that the action is something else other than what it truly is. You cannot consent to an action where someone manipulates you into conduct that you normally would not do if you knew the entire totality of the situation. But this is what was done to me. This is what was done to Skywalker. This is what was done to Sheree Hayes, the Punisher. This is what was done to Daniel Phillip. This is what was done to Rico Bosart. This is what was done to Julian Sapp. This is what was done to Jules Theodore, people. There are dozens of men out there who were manipulated into this Rico conspiracy, this decade-long sex trafficking ring of Sean Combs, Cassandra Ventura, and Daphne Joy or Jane Doe through the wealth and power of Sean Combs. Now, yes, people, Sean Combs would be the primary, or I want to say the top of the RICO conspiracy, because his money and his influence is what brought all of this together. But the simple fact that these women were in love with him and wanted to please him does not mean that they're not criminally liable. They most certainly are. Because while they were in love with Sean Combs and in these relationships, they were completely aware of what they were doing. They had fun doing it. They enjoyed doing it. And as long as Sean Combs gave them the attention they wanted, these women were happy. They were totally complicit and in love with their man. Now, in the course of them manipulating dozens of men, people, I was hurt. There are probably other men who are hurt also, but they don't have the strength and the integrity to come out and tell the truth, people, because it's embarrassing as a man to come forward and be horribly victim shamed like I'm doing for telling his truth. So many of these men are probably hiding behind the scenes because they're afraid of the public backlash that will come from admitting the truth of their situation. Many of them are still sex workers, so they don't want to, I want to say, destroy their sex working credibility with women who may be paying them with husbands by telling the truth about what Cassie did to them. And I know this for a fact because I've talked to some of the guys who are still involved in the sex industry, and they're like, bro, I can't say anything because, I'm still in the industry. Whatever. People, there was a RICO conspiracy involved there. And the RICO and conspiracy is, like I'm telling you, was Diddy, Cassie, Jane, and his staff, who created this enterprise where they would set up these freakos using bad boy resources and set up these freak-offs in order for the men to come in and help Cassie, Jane, and Diddy decompress with debauchery. Now, people, again, consent cannot be obtained through manipulation or coercion. That's not the truth. And this is what Netflix did to me. I interviewed for the first time with Netflix in September of 2024. And as I've said, that interview was highly biased and centered towards making Sean Combs look like the primary offender. As a man of integrity, people, that bothered me. So for several months, I reached out to the team of Netflix expressing the fact that I felt that interview was biased and did not truly portray what happened to me. I want to say in February of 2025, contact was returned by a woman named Vanessa Sanchez. And Miss Sanchez agreed that if I felt that the interview was biased, they were trying to tell a correct and accurate story. So I was granted a second interview to come back to Netflix and give a complete interview. The footage you see from the reckoning is that second interview. And in that interview, I spent 4 to 6 hours talking to Alexander Stapleton about both Cassie and Sean Combs. Because the truth is, my victimization came at the hands of both Diddy and Cassie. But Cassie was my primary offender, people. And I want to tell you why, from my perspective, Cassie is my primary offender. People, the person who called me for years was Cassie. Diddy did not make her call me. Diddy did not like me. Diddy hated me the first couple of years of him meeting me because I was an arrogant little shit. I'm going to be honest with you. Well, I wasn't little, but I was an arrogant younger man. I was incredibly arrogant. I knew Diddy had a micro joint. I knew I was 3-4 times larger than him. I knew I was smashing his woman out, making her come crazy, shake, and do all of this, people. And I felt good about that. The late Notorious B.I.G. had a song where the hook went, dreams of smashing the R&B chick. We all remember that song, people. And for me, back at that time, I was living that dream. I was smashing an R&B chick, people, in a monogamous, I believe, somewhat monogamous situation that was safe in order to, I guess, satisfy them. Now, could I have stopped going? Yes. But again, people, I was aware that Diddy was the man once I realized who he was. And it's not that easy to walk away from a situation where a powerful person is controlling you. I'm going to be honest with you, people. I was kind of concerned that Diddy might send a team of people to destroy my life. And Diddy had the money and resources to do that. So as you can probably tell by now, I'm not stupid. I was wise enough to try to keep that relationship good, so I never pissed off Diddy. And by not pissing off Diddy, I had to not piss off Cassie. So I worked very hard not to piss the two of these people off and make them think I was compliant, because as long as they thought I was compliant and protect their secret, people, I was safe. And I did this for years, people, because I was intelligent enough to realize as long as I made them think that things were good, I would be good. Audience, the saddest truth of this is that Netflix edited my interview horribly. They did. They edited my interview to position it so the only person that I spoke about was Diddy. Even the conversation about rugs. The conversation about rugs, people, I talked extensively to Alexander Stapleton about how Cassie was the one who taught me all about designer drugs, how Cassie drugged me, how Cassie's drug use used to control the situation. People, myself and Alexander Stapleton had a 4 to 6 hour interview about Cassie, primarily, and not Diddy. And the entire production crew of the House of whatever it was, nonfiction, listened to this interview. Why isn't it in The Reckoning, people? Why isn't any of that information about Cassie in The Reckoning? See, people, I'm not suing Netflix because I feel that they're protecting Cassie, even though I think that they do. I'm suing Netflix because I know Netflix manipulated my story to attack the credibility of Sean Combs, and that was wrong. As a recognized victim in a federally protected sex trafficking ring, Netflix does not have the right to monetize my story in order to make someone else look guilty. Here's the truth, people, that you're going to learn when that lawsuit is public. Netflix paid everybody $2,000, and I have the ACH transfer records and a bunch of emails from Vanessa Sanchez to prove it. So people, be on the lookout for Howard versus Netflix. Coming to you soon.
This isn't just another celebrity scandal. It's a potential turning point for Hollywood. The lawsuit claims Netflix prioritized a dramatic story over truth, monetizing real pain to craft a sensational narrative. For the 60 to 75 million viewers who watched The Reckoning, the version of events presented might be far from reality. As this explosive legal battle unfolds, questions about ethics, consent, and media accountability are front and center. How much power should streaming platforms have in shaping real-life stories? And how many voices like his remain silenced for the sake of good TV? One thing is clear. The fallout from Howard versus Netflix could reshape the way streaming giants handle real-life trauma, and the truth may finally get its chance to be seen.
If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, and comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts.